Welcome to Commodity Wrap Kickoff, produced by Rural Radio, Channel 147. This morning's show is live, and we're taking your calls. If you have a question, call us now at 855-RR-ON-147. That's 855-776-6147 to reach our studio. Now, here's your host.
All right, welcome into Commodity Wrap Call, and I'm Scott Shelby, otherwise known as the Cow Guy. Thank you very much for tuning us in here this morning. It's Friday the 13th. I'm not, as they say, I'm not superstitious. I'm kind of stitious. How about that? We had some action overnight, folks. I'm sure you're aware. Let's go through our prices, and we'll bring in our first next guest analyst. Let's start with corn. After yesterday's WASDE, corn down 1.5. Beans are up 3 3/4. There's a little green on the screen when we come to wheat. Wheat in Chicago is up 6 3/4. We're 5 1/4 cents better bid in the hard red, and spring wheat in Minneapolis is up 3.5 cents. Crude oil spiking higher, as one would imagine. We're up $5.75 to $73.80. Gold, as one can imagine, would also spike higher, $42 better. We're looking at the August. We're at $34.45, making our way to that 3,500 level. Cotton up 11 points. That just can't move. 67.58, and we've got all the equity indices under pressure. The Dow down 400, and the S&P down 50. What else? The U.S. dollar has strengthened considerably, got back a lot of what it lost yesterday, if not all of it. We're at 98.5, basically. 98.43, we're up 534 ticks there. And if you care, the 10-year yield around 436 on the nose. Let's bring in our next guest analyst. That's going to be Mr. Craig Bolanos. He's the co-founder and wealth manager of VestGen Wealth Managers in Chicago. Craig, thanks for being on.
Hey, good morning. And I got to tell you, if you would have told me that the Israelis were going to send up a combination of 200 F-15s and F-35s, those are fighter aircraft, against the Iranians overnight, I would have thought the futures would have been a lot worse than they were. What do you think that means, Scott?
I think that the international community's losing patience with Iran. And I think that the not so harshly worded comments out of the Middle East kind of also say that as well. They've had every chance to not have this happen. Now, see, having lived outside the country, I understand how they might feel with other countries telling them what they can and cannot do, because that would irk me too, right? Can you imagine somebody from, say, England saying you're not allowed to have, nuclear weapons, U.S.? You can understand how that would get your back up a little bit. I get that. But they haven't been good actors, so you have to be a responsible person for that to happen. I think it's not just us; it's Israel. It's the rest of a lot of other countries in the community that are worried about what they would do if they enriched above 60%. So I don't know. I did not know the scope until you just said it. I knew it was big, but I didn't know it was that big. And I think that sends a message, because I think you can't do a drive-by on this one. You have to go in and absolutely destroy it and have them start over, or I would call that a failure, because if you only damage it, that's going to make that beast angrier, and they can come back faster.
Well, yeah, this was not what we saw in 2024, where they would phone first and say, hey, we're sending them, and then they would retaliate and say the same thing. They're coming at 2 o'clock. Good luck. Hope you can intercept them. This was a much, much larger scale. And it's interesting. I mean, the oil prices have spiked. I guess everybody should have known West Texas Intermediate crude at $58 in May wasn't going to stick around. But isn't it interesting how the world is also viewing these different storages of value? Look at Bitcoin. Are you kidding me? This thing's starting to trade like gold is. No, I'm not making the same parallel. But between countries, central banks, individual states, pensions, sovereign wealth funds, and individual investors, here we are, 2025, and I'm going to say it right now. In June, it appears to me that Bitcoin is being used as a storage of value, not a risk-off asset, but the world is changing before my eyes.
Yeah, it is. And I would say that it did earlier, like 10 or 15 years ago, when it was really small, like, say, 7, 10, 15, 20,000. There was a lot of folks, because it was online and you could trade it around the world. And it kind of really stole a lot of the luster from gold. Gold kind of was laying there for a long time. People were using Bitcoin like gold. And then, as of late, gold's come back, stonking back. And we saw some pretty steep sell-offs in Bitcoin, which I think got some people's fingers burnt, and they kind of turned away from it. But now, they're both trading like they used to. So gold is actually back to its old self, and Bitcoin has continued on its rise. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I guess there's enough water in the pool so people can play, but it's definitely not the way it was in 2005. That's for sure.
No. Long are the days that Bitcoin was an obscure currency where nobody even understood the concept of blockchain and how this thing was going to work. I just think it means that if you're going to be an investor, you need to remember to lean into innovation, because innovation in all forms can create disruption. And when you lean into that, those long-term secular themes definitively prove out to be decent investment thematics, assuming you got the stomach and the time horizon to participate.
So you're going to be probably fielding some calls today. How are you going to handle this?
I think we're just going to educate everybody and say we're going to remain incredibly data-driven. It's data-driven, not sentiment, that allowed us to stay invested in 23 when the banks failed, stay invested when we were coming into an election and things like the yen carry trade happened in 24. Data-driven soft landing that allowed us not to get shaken out and take some advantage of everything that transpired after trade relative to the Rose Garden speech. So here, I'm looking this morning, I had a Dow Jones that's off 390 points. It's not a nothing burger. It's not a nothing burger because everybody's going to be waiting for the response from the Iranians. That's going to be what's key in terms of escalation or where this thing sits. But I'm going to remind everybody, let's focus on the core five. And if those economic data points remain resilient, the only thing I want people doing in the second half of the year is sitting tight, but rebalancing to continue to reduce risk and get target weights back to where they traditionally should be.
Yeah, I have to admit to you, 390 points on a day like today, that could be a normal day, not including what we've just seen happen. So we're back. We'll see, but it's who knows? Maybe we even go unchanged or even higher in the day today. It'll be interesting to see how the community handles it. But I'll be doing it all day. I'll be talking about it all day, that's for sure. I really appreciate you coming on, Craig. I'm always really interested to hear what you have to say. I know you're going to have a busy one. Thanks for taking the time. Craig Bolanos, he's a co-founder and wealth manager at VestGen Wealth Managers up in Chicago. We're going to go away. We're going to pay some bills, and hopefully give us some text, folks, or maybe even a call in. Again, 855-776-6147. I want to hear what you have to say. We'll be right back right after this.